back when I was 19, around 2020 or so, I lived in Nebraska's biggest city. Even though it was the largest place around, it still felt rural. Fields of corn and grain stretched out everywhere beyond the city limits. The town was growing, though. Wealthy folks started putting up massive homes with sprawling yards right where the city faded into the countryside. My buddy lived in one of those huge houses. His parents' place was awesome, sitting smack on the edge between civilization and the endless fields. We hung out there all the time. They had plenty of space to rip around on ATVs, a hot tub to chill in, and a giant living room perfect for watching games or marathoning trashy TV shows. His parents were laid back too. They didn't mind if we cracked open a few beers, as long as we crashed there instead of driving home. It was a teenager's dream spot. The only downside? I've always been freaked out by the dark. After sunset, I stayed inside. The property had almost no lights, and the nearest neighbor was a good mile off. Driving there at night always gave me the creeps, but nothing strange ever happened until one weird night. The road to their place was this long, twisty 2-lane stretch. Trees towered over it on both sides, so thick you couldn't see through them. On the way, you'd pass a massive old cemetery, one of the biggest in the city. The streetlights were few and far between, and hardly anyone else drove out there. It felt eerie every time. I'd usually gun it through that part just to shake off the heebie-jeebies. It was a warm spring night, probably around 10 p.m. I was cruising along with my windows down, tunes blasting, feeling good. Then, as I rounded a bend, I had to mash the brakes hard. There, in the middle of the road, lit up only by my headlights, was what looked like a family. Imagine this: a dead dark road, woods closing in, and just my car's beams cutting through the night. I saw a tall, thin woman, a regular-looking guy, and a kid, maybe 9 years old, short hair, couldn't tell if they were a boy or girl. The woman was pushing a stroller too. They weren't dressed weird, jeans and shirts, nothing fancy or ragged, but they had no flashlights, no phones, nothing. They'd been walking in total blackness before I showed up. They were all facing away from me, strolling quietly down the center of the road in the same direction I was going. I turned off my music to listen. Nothing. No voices, no footsteps, just silence. My skin prickled. I stopped my car a safe distance behind them, expecting them to step aside. They didn't budge. They didn't even glance back. It was like I didn't exist. My brain couldn't make sense of it. It felt like a scene from a nightmare. Then, all at once, they stopped walking. In perfect sync, they turned around slowly to face me. My heart dropped. I didn't stick around to see their faces. Nope. I slammed my car into reverse, backed up fast for a solid 15 seconds, then whipped around in a messy U-turn. I nearly slid into a ditch, but I peeled out of there like my life depended on it. One detail stuck with me as I fled. That stroller? It looked totally empty. That's the part that still messes with my head. I've never been that scared before or since. I kept checking my mirrors all the way back to a busy road. They were gone, like they'd vanished into thin air. Later, I brought it up to my friend and his folks. They just stared at me like I'd lost it. I felt ridiculous. Whenever I tell people this story, they either laugh it off, call me a liar, or say they've seen something spooky too. I don't care if anyone buys it. It happened, and it's still the freakiest moment of my life. I've replayed it in my mind 1,000 times. Maybe it was some oddballs messing with people. Maybe it was a trap for something shady. Or maybe it was something else. I tell myself it was just a prank gone wrong. That's the only way I can sleep at night.